I bring greetings from my Power of Now group from the San Juan Islands, north of Seattle.
Oh, yes, on which island?
Lopez Island.
Oh, right, thank you.
The south end of Lopez Island.
Yes.
I have a pre-question, and that is, among three friends and more, I keep hearing a different pronunciation of your last name, and I wanted to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name, as a pre-question?
Okay. My last name is, usually I use an anglicized form of pronunciation, which is Tolle. Tolle. In the original German, the O should have two dots on top, called umlaut, which changes. Now I'm giving a talk on the O without the two dots is pronounced O, and the O with the two dots is pronounced Ö, which sound does not exist in English, but exists in German and Scandinavian languages. So that name then should be pronounced Tölle. Tölle. But that's too difficult. People cannot produce that sound. So ever since I lived in England, I've used Tolle, the anglicized. That's the end of the explanation.
Thank you. My question is, could you comment on the value of astrology in terms of the ideas that we've been moving through here?
Yeah. I haven't studied astrology personally. I've sometimes looked at it, and I have read some books, but more popular kind of books many years ago, star signs and things like that. So I cannot give an authoritative judgment on astrology, but I do know that many factors influence the human being. The human being is not a separate entity from the rest of the universe. There are many energetic streams that influence humans, and the more unconscious you are, the more susceptible you are to influences, other energy fields. They come from other human beings, they can come from groups of human beings, they can come, and I'm sure they can come from so-called outer space also, because everything is totally interconnected. So whether astrology is able to interpret correctly what comes to us here from outer space, I don't know. But similar to other ways, these are ways through which you can look at the makeup or the conditioning of human beings. They are grids. You can put the grid and then you look at another being. You have other things like the Enneagram and other means, and they can be quite helpful. They can help people to understand certain patterns within themselves, and perhaps also astrology can do that. I sometimes, when I did read books, I thought, yes, this is true. Many of the things that Aquarius, I'm an Aquarius, and many of the things they described Aquarians as seem to apply to me. Can't remember what they are now. And I could see I was definitely not a Leo, and I was not a Virgo, and I was more like Aquarius. So it's interesting. I would say the less present you are, and not just talking with reference to astrology, but with reference to being influenced by other energies around you, including the full moon and so on. I was surprised. Last year, I was in Chicago, or was it 2 years ago? There was a full moon, and the next day there'd been an enormously high number of people killed violently that night. And I thought perhaps there's a connection that the lunar influence can make you into a lunatic. And the more unconscious a person is, the more susceptible they are to including energies from other human beings. You can be in an environment where there's a group of humans who are unconscious, they're producing an enormous amount of negativity, or even just a single person producing an enormous amount. And if you're not present, you immediately get infected, very infectious. And this is energy that spreads, that every human emanates certain energy field of certain frequency, and it's just as infectious as a physical disease can be. But as you are very present, you don't get infected by the negativity. It does not produce negativity in you. It's not that you cut yourself off by building up an inner barrier, but by not resonating at the frequency of the energy field, and then it passes through you, you become invisible to it, so to speak, because it's a different vibrational frequency from the heaviness of negativity. So that's and I would say, that applies to influences from outer space also, that the more present you are, the less susceptible you are to those influences. So they may still influence you to some extent, and I'm only extrapolating. I don't really know about outer space, but I'm only extrapolating from what I have observed in how people get infected by energy fields from various sources. And it's not only emotional energy fields that can affect people, it's also mental. Certain thoughts can become like a virus in the human mind. And these days, many of these thoughts actually spread through the internet. There are thoughts that can take over, either it's a single thought or a group of thoughts that belong together. They can take possession of a person's mind, and every thought is an energy field. So you could read something about on the internet about some weird idea, and this thought, if you're not present, if you're perhaps a young person looking for some kind of answer to life, and there's the most absurd idea suddenly, and you start believing in it, and not only that, it takes possession of your mind. And then everything you interpret through that idea that has taken possession of your mind and almost begins to eliminate every other thought in your head. This is what happens, I believe, to many terrorists who become possessed by an idea that completely hijacks their mind. And this has happened collectively when an entire country can be under the influence of a virus that spreads into almost every mind, and that then can create phenomena such as National Socialism in Germany, or Soviet communism was similar, when an idea that takes possession of people's minds. The same happened under China under Mao Zedong. Everybody was dressed the same. They were all wearing their boiler suits and holding up the Red Book and shouting, completely possessed by one idea, and then anybody who did not fit in becomes an enemy. It's a form of ego too, but this is how a thought can act like a virus in the mind and take over. So all these things can happen in the absence of presence. So to be influenced, and nobody is totally free. I think if I go into an environment that is negative, I can feel it. But usually, if I can, I would immediately remove myself. Why go into it? If I cannot remove myself, then I stay in it and have to go into such intensity of presence that the energy just doesn't bounce off. It passes through, and then you go. This is the psychic immunity from that. So if you don't lose yourself in astrology that's, it's fine. It doesn't take you to spiritual awakening necessarily, but it can perhaps help you to understand patterns in yourself that you would usually be identified with, in the same way that the Enneagram can do that, can have that helpful function, so that you understand certain patterns that are forms of conditioning within yourself. And once you recognize them, they no longer have that power over you, and you can begin to step out of that. Thank you.